All right, everyone, we're going to do the periodicity of, well, no, we're going to do the forecasting if periodicity is even now. So first thing we want to do is actually find out if the periodicity is even in the first place. So we're going to grab this value right here, our demand, and we're going to go here to the line chart. And remember, if you've seen the previous video that I posted, which was if forecasting if the periodicity was odd, the peak of these mountains, which are your cycles right here, is your periodicity. So the peak is on the fourth value, so your periodicity is 4. So we're going to go down. Let's go like down here, and we'll place our value in right there at 4. We're also going to need our L and our T. Now this is what I call prep work. We're basically putting in every single piece of information that we will eventually grab. So we need deseasonalized demand. We also need D bar, which is equal to L plus lowercase t times uppercase t. And then you have your ST, which is equal to demand divided by D bar. Okay. Now, what does this mean right here? What does periodicity mean? That means for every single cycle, you have 4 periods. So this is cycle 1, this is cycle 2, and this is cycle 3. All right. Now, usually, if they do not specify any specific future value, they just say predict the future cycle, you're giving them an additional cycle of 4 periods, or whatever your periodicity happens to be at that time. So it's 4 right here, so we're going to go 4 additional values, 13, 14, 15, and 16. As you can see, I have them marked in red. They would have started as black, it's just I had already done this question before, which is why they appeared in red. So we now have our values that we want to figure out. Now the next step is to do our deseasonalized demand. Now the way that this works, it's a decent amount different than it is with the odd periodicity. Now the first step is all the same. What two numbers can you split 4 into? That's it, period. There is no with one value being a little bit bigger than the other. No, you just cut this one, you just cut right down the middle if it's an even periodicity. That's 2 and 2. So that means in order for you to start here, you need 2 demand values above and 2 demand values below. All right. Now this is where you want to start because, well, you have these 2 right here. The reason why you're not going to start up here, by the way, is because you need to demand values above the current one, and you don't have any for this one. For this value, you only have 1, you don't have the 2, so you can't do that. So we're going to start at this one right here. Now, this is basically the same as the previous one. Going to be adding all the values. Because, the reason why we're doing 5 this time is because, well, you have the 2 above the slot that you're in, the 2 below the slot that you're in, and then the actual slot that you happen to be in. Now here is where it takes a wild turn. You will now multiply every value in here by 2 except for your starting value and your ending value. So here that's B2 and B6. B2 and B6 are not to be multiplied by 2. Everything else is, though. So B3 has to be multiplied by 2, B4 has to be multiplied by 2, and B5 has to be multiplied by 2. Cool. Now, instead of dividing by the periodicity, you are actually divided by the periodicity times 2. In this case, that's 8. 19,750. Let's make sure that's right. There we go. Now, since we have no values that we're drawing in from here, we can just drag this down to our demand. to the limit of our demand, because obviously it's drawing from these data points. If there's no more data points to draw from, there's no reason for it. Now you have to check to make sure that every single one of these values in the parentheses has an actual number in it. If it's an empty cell, you can't use it. So we're going to click right here. Oh, see, period 12 has 2 empty cells that it's using. Useless, we're deleting it. This one, we click into the next data slot. Oh, see this one? Period 13, well, period 11 has a blank right here at period 13, so useless, we're deleting it. We can also get rid of these two, we don't need that anymore. Now we have our deseasonalized demand. Next step, we're going to go to data. Now we're going to use the data analysis tool. If you do not have data analysis tool, it can only be in this spot, by the way, so don't look for it anywhere else. It is only here. If you do not have it, you're going to go File, going to go Options, going to scroll down here to Add-ins, click this Go button right here, and you're going to make sure that the analysis toolpack has a check right on the left of it right here. As soon as you do that and you click OK, this button, Data Analysis, will appear. You're going to click that. You're going to go to Regression. As you can see, I already have it selected. I'm going to delete that, and this is usually what it starts out as. You get this sort of blank slate. Now what we're going to do, so we're just going to click this arrow right here for the input Y range, and your Y range is your deseasonalized demand. Only the values that actually have, well, only the cells that only have numbers in them. Now your input X range is all the periods that happen to have a deseasonalized demand value. So period 1 and 2 don't have deseasonalized demand values, so you're not going to use them. Same thing with 11 and 12, and obviously we don't have anything for 13 and on, so we're not going to use those either. Now a lot of people use new worksheet. I prefer to actually have my information in front of me. So I click output range and I click this little arrow right here, and I click any slot I want, and then click OK, and that's where it gives me my summary output. Now you may think, what do I need a summary output for? Well, this is to help you with your D-bar, because this will actually give you your L value and your T value. And they're right here. That's your L value, the top one, and that's your T value. So we're just going to drag it over to make it easier. Now we have our L and our T. Now the lowercase t is your period. So whenever you're inputting that stuff, you don't have to be like, where's my lowercase t? It's your period. So let's go. Equals uppercase L plus the period slot that you're currently in. Now use an asterisk to signify multiplication. And you put in your t value. Now I'm going to show you an error. This is how to do it wrong. You drag it. Oh, you're getting zeros now. Why? Well, as you see, your initial B22 is now B27. Well, B27 is empty. There's no point to using those slots. So how do you make sure that these values right here, B22 and B23, stay B22 and 23? Well, that's when you put dollar signs in front of the letter and number of any value you want to stay the same no matter what. Now, your periods you want to change because you want it to work for period 2, 3, 4, and on. But you don't want your L and T to change because there aren't other numbers for it to change to. Now you drag this all the way down to the final value. Cool. Now we have our D bars. The next step is our STs, which is just demand divided by D bars. So you're going to click the equals, you're going to click demand, you're going to divide it by the D bar, you're going to click equals. Now you want it to go down by 1 each time because you want it to, well, you want to get the different numbers. So you're going to drag it until you no longer have a demand value to drag from, which is period 12 in this case. Now these are your ST values. Now this is how you get the ST values for the future cycle that you're trying to figure out. If you look at this future cycle right here, 13, even though 13 is definitely not the number 1, it is the first value in this specific cycle, right? So the way we're going to find out their ST is actually by averaging out all the first values of every cycle. So the cycles of 4. So 1 to 4 is one cycle, 5 to 8 is the next, 9 to 12 is the next. So the first value of each, we're going to go to the ST. Oh, not period, make sure, only use a comma. Now, that's the first value, period 1. Now, the second cycle starts at 5. 5 is the next first value. The next one starts at 9. 9 is the next first value. We average that out. Now, remember what we saw as an issue here will actually be a benefit here. These are all the first values. Now, you want to find for the second values, but if you drag down by 1, it'll drag all those values down by 1, taking you automatically to the second value, and the third, and the fourth. Those are all your STs right there. Now, the last step is very, very simple. We already have what our ST is. ST is demand divided by D bar. But we have our ST and we have our D bar. We're only missing the demand. So in basic math, how do we get the demand by itself? We multiply the D bar on both sides. So that means ST multiplies by D bar. And then, of course, the divided by D bar cancels with the multiplied by D bar, leaving you with just demand. So we want to find our demand. Multiply the ST that you have with D bar. And of course, you can just drag these values down like we have been. Let's compare. 11,909, 11,909. 17,612, 17,612. It looks like we got it. All right, let's highlight these in red to signify these values that we have. And there we go. That's how you figure out the future value, or the future value of a future cycle using forecasting with an even periodicity.